I let my sister crash on my couch after her breakup, then caught her sneaking into my room at night to sleep with my husband. So I filmed it and sent it to our mom. I grew up in a small-ass town in upstate New York, the kind where everyone knows each other's business before you do. If someone sneezes on Main Street, it's being dissected in a church prayer group by nightfall. Family-wise, it was just the four of us: my dad, a high school history teacher, my mom, a part-time nurse, me, the overachieving older kid, and my sister, the epicenter of all family chaos. Not that anyone called it that. To them, she was the golden child. Even as a kid, it was obvious. If I got a B+, it was, you could have done better. She got a C, and it was, she tried her best, bless her heart. I'd get grounded for a week for coming home late. She'd sneak out, get caught, and somehow I ended up being lectured for not watching her better. The favoritism wasn't subtle, it was practically neon lit. Still, I swallowed it. I told myself it didn't matter. That I was stronger for it. That someday, I'd leave it behind. And I did. Mostly. College was my out. I busted my ass, got a scholarship to a solid law program, moved out of that suffocating town, and never looked back. First time in my life I felt like I was building something that was mine, without anyone else's fingerprints on it. During my second year, I met her, my ex. I'm not gonna name her because I don't want to see her name on this screen. But I'll say this, she lit me up in a way I didn't know I needed. Studied design, full of ideas, chaos, spark. She was unpredictable, but honest. Or so I thought. We were together almost 3 years. Lived together the last one. It wasn't perfect, we were both stressed, busy, tired, but I loved her. I was ready to marry her. I even bought a ring. We talked about moving to Boston after graduation. Starting our lives. Careers. Maybe kids one day. I thought we were in it together. I was an idiot. December of my final year, I went home for the holidays. She had to stay behind for a portfolio deadline. Fine, I thought. No big deal. We'd been a little distant lately, but that's what stress does, right? My parents were thrilled to see me. My mom cried. My dad grilled me about politics like usual. But my sister, she was acting weird. Too nice. Asking too many questions about my relationship, cracking half jokes about how people grow apart and some couples aren't meant to last. I figured she was just being her usual messy self. I came back to campus in early January, and things didn't feel quite right. My ex was jumpy, quiet. I caught her crying one night in the bathroom. When I asked what was wrong, she said she was just overwhelmed. That she felt like she was failing me. I held her and told her I loved her. That we'd get through it. That we were solid. Again, idiot. Then came the day everything shattered. I was using her laptop because mine had completely died. I needed to submit a paper and figured it wouldn't matter. Her Facebook was open. A message popped up. I didn't think, just clicked it. Habit. It was my sister. And the things I read. Jesus. It was like being hit by a truck. Paragraphs of flirtation, forbidden feelings, how they never meant for it to happen, but couldn't deny it anymore. Talk about the night they were together. How it felt right. How she was scared, how they were scared, but maybe they were meant to be. All while I was home with my parents, playing board games and pretending my life wasn't on fire. I sat there for hours. No exaggeration. Just staring at the screen, reading every disgusting word over and over until they blurred together. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just went cold. I screen capped everything. Saved it. Filed it under proof of betrayal. I didn't confront her that night. Or the next. I couldn't even look at her. She started noticing I was different, quiet, distant. I told her I was stressed. That law school was eating me alive. She believed it. One night, she finally said she needed to talk. That something had happened. That she had crossed a line and couldn't live with the guilt. She told me everything. Well, her version. That she and my sister didn't plan it. That it was just one time. That they had some kind of connection they couldn't ignore. That she was so sorry. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I told her to pack her shit and get out. 2 days later, I was in a new apartment. And that was just the beginning. So yeah, I moved out. Found this tiny one-bedroom near the edge of town, barely any furniture, mattress on the floor, no internet for the first week. Didn't care. I just needed space. Space away from her. Away from my sister. away from the weight of every room I had shared with either of them. I told nobody what had happened. Not at first. I ghosted everyone for a couple weeks, including my parents. My dad kept texting, assuming I was busy with finals. My mom sent her usual chain messages, thinking of you, sweetie, paired with a picture of some angel holding a candle or whatever. I didn't respond. Not because I was trying to be dramatic, I just didn't trust myself to talk to them without blowing up. The first person I told was my best friend, Nate. We'd been close since freshman year, met in a 7:30 a.m. ethics class we both hated, bonded over caffeine addiction and mutual contempt for rich kid politics. I texted him to come over, and when he did, I just shoved the screenshots at him without saying a word. His face twisted in real time. First confusion. Then disbelief. Then pure rage. He dropped his beer and muttered, "Bro. What the actual fuck?" That kind of summed it up. He offered to key my sister's car. I declined. Told him I didn't want revenge. I wanted silence. Closure. Disconnection. I just wanted to burn every emotional bridge they'd built and pretend none of it ever happened. But life doesn't let you off that easy, does it? Word got around. Small town gossip travels fast, even when you don't say a thing. I didn't realize how fast until my mom called me out of nowhere and opened with, "I know what happened, and I think you're being unfair." I swear, I almost laughed. Not, laughed. The kind of broken, sarcastic wheeze that makes people ask if you're okay when you clearly aren't. I asked her what exactly she thought she knew. She didn't answer the question. Just repeated that, sometimes love shows up in unexpected places. That's what she said. Love shows up in unexpected places. I asked her if she understood that we were engaged. That I had bought a damn ring. That we were living together. Her response? She was confused. She didn't want to hurt you. I felt something in my chest snap. I asked if it was true, if my sister really loved her. My mom said she wasn't sure, but that, feelings were mutual, and, you can't control who you fall for. So yeah. Turns out they weren't sorry. Not really. Not in a meaningful way. They were just sorry I found out. A week later, the wedding invites went out. No joke. I got one in the mail. Same name. My ex. Now fiancé to my sister. Glossy cardstock. Pastel colors. You're cordially invited. The fucking nerve. I stared at that invite for a long time, then ripped it into pieces and flushed it. But what really pushed things over the edge was my dad. He called me after the invites had gone out, and I figured maybe, just maybe, he was going to take my side. Offer some sanity in this circus. But no. He started off slow, easing into it, like it was a difficult conversation for him. Said things like, "I know this is tough for you, and nobody wanted it to happen like this," and then the kicker, "I'd really like it if you came to the wedding." I actually thought it was a joke. I said, "You can't be serious." And he said, "It would mean a lot to your mother. And to your sister. Closure, maybe. A chance to move forward." I told him what I thought that closure would look like, me showing up, throwing a drink in someone's face, and burning their gift table. He said that kind of talk wasn't helpful. I asked him, plain and simple, whose side he was on. He went quiet. And that told me everything I needed to know. About a month before the wedding, he showed up at my apartment. I opened the door, already exhausted. He looked older than I remembered, like the weight of all this had drained him too. We sat in the kitchen. No coffee. No snacks. Just the awkward air between us. And then he pulled out a checkbook. Said he wanted to help. Said if I agreed to show up and keep the peace, he'd write me something to ease the tension. I stared at him like he was insane. "You're offering me money to bless this circus?" I asked. "No," he said. "I'm offering money to keep the family from falling apart." That's when it hit me. To them, I was the problem. Not the betrayal. Not the lies. Me. My silence. My refusal to forgive. That's what they couldn't tolerate. I took the check. Told him I'd think about it. Then I closed the door and blocked their numbers. Let me just be clear, I never intended to cash the check. Not at first. When my dad left it sitting there on my counter, I let it gather dust for a few days. Every time I passed by it, I felt this mix of disgust and confusion. Like, was I really being offered money to accept betrayal? Was that what my place in the family was worth? Some bullshit, peace offering, to make it easier for them to live with themselves. But then something switched. I started thinking less like the hurt older brother and more like someone who'd been systematically erased. First, they stole the woman I loved. Then they expected me to shut up and sit down. And now they wanted to pay me off to make sure I stayed quiet. Screw that. I deposited it. Not because I was forgiving anything. Not because I was moving on. I cashed that check the same way you'd grab compensation after a car accident someone else caused. It wasn't healing. It was reimbursement. For lost time. For dignity. For every humiliating night I spent trying to make sense of what the hell happened to my life. About a week later, my mother called again. I'd blocked her number, but she used a new one, some burner phone like I wouldn't recognize her voice. She was checking in. She heard from my dad that I'd taken the money, and she hoped that meant I was reconsidering attending the wedding. I laughed. I actually laughed. Let me guess, I said. You figured once I cashed the check, that meant I owed you something? She tried to backpedal. Said the money wasn't conditional. That it was just support, just family trying to help family. Then she slipped. She said, it's only fair, since she'll be your sister-in-law now anyway. That sentence hit me like a punch to the throat. I told her that if she ever called me again, I'd make sure the next conversation was through a lawyer. So that was it. The final line in the sand. Wedding day came and went. I didn't go. I didn't ask who did. I didn't check social media. I made damn sure I didn't even leave my apartment. That whole weekend I kept my phone off, turned off every device, and just existed like a ghost. By Monday, I felt like I'd survived a hurricane. The silence was weirdly healing. A few days after the wedding, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. My sister's handwriting. She told me she missed me. That the wedding wasn't the same without me. That she knew what she did was wrong, but love was complicated, and the heart wants what it wants. She said she hoped one day we could be family again. That she believed we were meant to grow through this. I didn't reply. I burned the letter. Months passed. I graduated. Got my JD. Took the bar. Started my first real job at a mid-sized firm in Chicago. Moved into a new place with furniture that wasn't secondhand or Craigslist leftovers. It finally started to feel like a real life again. My own life. One that didn't orbit around people who couldn't keep their hands, or loyalty, to themselves. I should have known that peace wouldn't last. About 8 months later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened. It was her. My ex. Her voice was soft, shaky. She said she didn't know if I'd even hear the message, but she was calling because things had fallen apart. Apparently, my sister, her new wife, was cheating on her. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, listening to that message with this twisted sense of déjà vu. Like watching a rerun of a show you hated the first time. She said she didn't know who else to call. That she missed talking to me. That she still thought about us. She ended with, I'm sorry. For everything. I didn't call her back. That same week, my dad showed up. No warning. Just knocked on my office door like we hadn't gone nuclear almost a year prior. I was in the middle of a case brief and asked the receptionist to tell him I wasn't available. He waited in the lobby for 2 hours before leaving a note. It said, she's pregnant. I thought you should know. Not sure if he meant my sister or my ex. Didn't care. Because by that point, I'd already made my choice. Whatever happened to them from here on out, I wasn't part of it. I'd taken their money. And they'd taken everything else. We're even. I didn't respond to the note. I left it folded on my desk until I got tired of looking at it, then shredded it without reading it again. I didn't need to know who was pregnant. I didn't want to know. What was I supposed to do? Send flowers? Offer babysitting tips? Congratulations, I guess. Nah. I was out. Fully, finally, out. And yet, they didn't stop. Over the next few weeks, I started getting messages through third parties. Old high school friends. Cousins I barely talked to. A college roommate who still followed my sister on Instagram. Hey man, I know it's none of my business, but your family really wants to talk to you. Your sister's been asking about you. She's going through a rough time. Rough time. That phrase stuck with me. When I was going through a rough time, they were sending wedding invitations. When I was gut-punched by betrayal, they were out picking napkin colors and cake flavors. But now that the house of cards was shaking, suddenly I was worth reaching out to. Then came the letter. Not a call. Not a text. A letter. From my mom this time. It was long. Too long. The kind of letter that tries to sound thoughtful but is mostly emotional blackmail disguised as healing. She wrote about how hard life had been since I left, how my sister wasn't coping well, how the pregnancy had brought clarity, that having a child made her realize she needed to fix things, that she missed her big brother. But the part that really hit me? She said, "We know mistakes were made, but you're still family. And family forgives." I read that line 5 times. Mistakes. Like this was all just a messy misunderstanding. Like they'd borrowed my sweater without asking. Not demolished my relationship and then paraded the ashes down the aisle. I remember pacing my apartment after that. Part of me wanted to call her. Not to reconnect, just to let her have it. To finally tell her how she'd failed me. How choosing peace over truth isn't noble, it's cowardice. But I didn't call. Because I knew what would happen. She'd cry. She'd say I was being harsh. She'd find a way to twist it until I was the one hurting everyone. So I threw that letter in the trash. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. A few days later, I got a call from my dad's number. This time, I picked up. I don't know why. Morbid curiosity, maybe. Or maybe I wanted to hear him lie to my face one more time. He sounded tired. Not just physically, but spiritually. Like life had chewed him up and spit him out and he'd finally realized he wasn't as in control as he thought. He started with small talk, how work was going, if I was still in the same apartment. I didn't humor it. "What do you want?" I asked. He sighed. "They need help." I almost laughed. Of course they did. He explained that my sister wasn't working, that her wife, my ex, had left her. Apparently packed up and moved out after catching her cheating. Again. Said she couldn't do it anymore. That she had a kid to think about now. "She left the baby with your sister," he said. "And she's not handling it." That's when it clicked. That's why they were reaching out. They didn't want forgiveness. They wanted relief. My sister was overwhelmed. My ex had dipped. There was a baby involved now. And in their heads, I was still the stable one. The one who'd clean up the mess like I always used to. The responsible big brother. The dependable one. "You want me to what?" I asked. "Step in. Be a backup dad to the child of the woman who betrayed me and the sister who helped her do it?" "I'm not saying that," he said quickly. "But, she has no one else. And we're not as young as we used to be." I could feel my pulse hammering behind my eyes. "Then maybe you should have thought about that before backing her wedding," I said. There was silence. Thick, choking silence. Then he said something that finally killed whatever scrap of empathy I had left. "We thought you'd come around eventually. That's it. That was the plan all along. Not to fix anything. Not to take accountability. Just, wait me out. Let time do the apologizing. Let the years smooth it all over like it was some big misunderstanding. Like they hadn't gutted me." I told him something then that I probably should have said the night this all started. "I don't owe her anything. I don't owe you anything. You made your choice when you cashed that RSVP. And I made mine when I cashed your check." He tried to speak, but I hung up. Blocked the number. Again. That was the last time I heard his voice. After that last phone call with my dad, it felt like something had finally clicked into place. Not in a cathartic, "I'm healed now," kind of way, more like a final lock sliding shut. I was done. Not just emotionally, but practically. No more calls. No more letters. No more messages through friends of friends. I ghosted them like they were toxic exes, because, truthfully, that's exactly what they were. Blood doesn't change betrayal. It just makes it sting deeper. But silence has a way of baiting desperation, and it didn't take long for them to up the ante. 2 weeks after the call, a new letter came. This one wasn't handwritten. It was a typed, official-looking envelope with my full name on the front. No return address. Inside, a photocopy of a custody filing. Yeah. My sister was filing for full legal custody of the baby. Apparently, my ex had fully disappeared. Like, skipped town level gone. No calls. No visits. Not even child support. The letter wasn't a request for help, it was an update. Just thought you'd want to know, kind of move, disguised as legal formality. But at the bottom, in barely concealed subtext, it was screaming, "This kid has no one." I stared at it for a long time. Not out of sentiment. Just disbelief. Like, how far down the ladder of responsibility do they think I'm willing to climb? I'm not the father. I'm not the uncle. I'm not even a family friend. I'm the casualty. I'm the guy they shoved under the bus so they could play house, and now that the engine's on fire, they want me to dig them out. I crumpled the paperwork and threw it in the trash. Felt like a metaphor, honestly. But I couldn't shake the image of that kid. No, I didn't want to be involved. I didn't feel a damn thing for my sister's child. But I remembered what it felt like being the one kid nobody protected. The one no one picked first. That part of me, the one I tried so hard to shut off, was gnawing at the edges. So I did the only thing I could stomach doing. I made an anonymous call to Child Protective Services. Asked some vague questions. Told them there was concern for a minor's welfare. I didn't give names. I just dropped the breadcrumb. If she was struggling, let the system step in. Not me. I wouldn't be their fallback plan. I kept that decision to myself. Not even Nate knew. He'd always been the one person I confided in, but this? I felt like talking about it would make it real. Like maybe if I kept it sealed, I could still pretend I had moved on. Until my dad showed up at my door again. This time I didn't even let him knock. My building has a camera, and the second I saw his face on the feed, I knew he hadn't come for small talk. I stepped into the hallway, shut the door behind me, and told him he had 2 minutes. He didn't waste them. She's in a bad place, he said. The kid hasn't been to daycare in weeks. She's not eating. She's sleeping all day. We don't know what to do. I waited. Then he said the real reason he was there, we think you should take temporary custody. I didn't yell. Didn't curse him out. Didn't laugh in his face like I should've. I just stared at him, because the sheer audacity had drained me of emotion. You want me, I said slowly, to raise the child of the woman who left me and the sister who betrayed me. She's your niece. She's not, I snapped. She's your grandchild. Maybe if you'd raised your kids better, I wouldn't even be in this conversation. His face cracked for a second. I saw it. This flicker of shame, or maybe just regret that his manipulation wasn't working this time. He tried to pull the, "you've always been the strong one," card. Said I was mature. Responsible. That I'd always had a big heart. That heart, I said, was yours to protect. And you let them stomp all over it. He opened his mouth, probably to say something like family is all we have. I walked away. He stood there for a while. I didn't check if he left. I didn't care. That night, I blocked his number again and changed the lock code on my building's front gate. But the worst part, even after all that, part of me still wondered what would happen to that baby. Not because I felt any connection. Just dread. The idea of a kid growing up in that same house of dysfunction. Of being raised by someone who'd never been held accountable for anything in her life. A child who would eventually be told some warped version of the story where I was the villain who abandoned his family. Let them tell it. Let them lie. I know the truth. By this point, I was operating in a weird in-between space. Emotionally numb, but also hyper-aware. You ever get so used to being betrayed that you start watching everyone like a potential threat? That was me. I'd flinch when my phone buzzed. I'd ignore knocks at the door unless I was expecting someone. I stopped posting online altogether because I knew they were still watching. They wanted to know if I'd cracked yet. But the thing is, I hadn't cracked. I'd calcified. That numbness wasn't apathy. It was armor. A month passed with no word. Not from my dad, not from my sister, not from anyone else in their orbit. For the first time in what felt like years, the silence was actually peaceful. I went to work, hit the gym, cooked dinner like a normal person. No drama. No guilt tripping. I could finally breathe. Then the email came. It wasn't from them, at least not directly. It was from a lawyer. Some small family law office with a firm name that sounded like it belonged on a strip mall sign, redacted, and Sons. At first, I thought it was spam. But the subject line hit me like a brick: request for mediation, custodial interest and family support. Inside was a brief but nauseatingly polite message. My sister had named me as a potential, secondary caregiver, in a contingency filing. If she couldn't maintain custody, she'd listed me as someone willing to step in, if necessary. The mediation was an attempt to explore possibilities before things escalated to court. I sat at my desk, staring at that screen, my mouth dry. She listed me. After everything. After she burned my life to the ground, married the person who helped her do it, then had a child from that mess, she'd decided I might make a good plan B. It wasn't just a legal maneuver. It was an act of delusion. Like she'd invented a version of me that still cared. That would drop everything and step in out of duty or nostalgia or blood. I called the number on the letter. Got a receptionist who transferred me to some junior associate with the personality of dry toast. I told him, calmly but clearly, that I had never agreed to any kind of guardianship. That I had no relationship with the child, no communication with the mother, and no intention of ever being involved. He mumbled something about it being standard to name family. I told him to take my name off everything. Permanently. Legally. Immediately. I understand, he said, like a customer service robot. No, you don't, I thought. You don't understand what it's like to be written into someone's life like a convenience store. Open 24/7. Always stocked. Never thanked. I hung up. Then I did what I should have done long ago. I got my own lawyer. Not because I expected a fight, but because I was done playing defense. I wanted my name protected. I wanted documentation. I wanted them to see, on paper, that I was not their safety net. A few days later, my lawyer sent a cease and desist notice to my sister, barring her from including me in any custodial filings without express written consent. It was formal. Cold. Impersonal. Exactly what they'd earned. The next blow came fast. My dad showed up at my office again, this time red in the face, pacing like a man on the verge of a breakdown. I only spoke to him because my assistant intercepted him and thought it was an emergency. He came in without even sitting down. You embarrassed her, he said, jabbing a finger at me like I'd broken some sacred rule. You sent legal threats to your own sister. What the hell is wrong with you? I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was insane. What's wrong with me? I said. You all treated me like a utility, and now you're pissed I've cut the power. He went on a tirade about how this isn't how family works, how kids change everything, how blood is thicker than ego. I stood there, arms crossed, and watched the performance like a bored critic. You don't get to decide my boundaries, I said. You're punishing a child for mistakes that weren't hers. She's not my child. I shouted, louder than I meant to. People in the hall probably heard. I didn't care. He stopped talking. For the first time in this entire disaster, he looked small. I pointed at the door. Leave. He hesitated. I said get out. He left. Didn't slam the door. Didn't shout back. Just walked out, like he was finally starting to realize I meant it. And I did. Because here's the truth. Once you accept that your family doesn't actually see you as a person, just as a resource, it's easier to let go. They weren't grieving the loss of me, they were upset they couldn't use me anymore. That's what all the calls, letters, visits, legal documents were about, access. And now they didn't have it. For once, I wasn't the one cleaning up their mess. After that last showdown with my dad, it was like I'd finally hit a switch. Not just, I'm done, emotionally, I was untouchable. There were no more what-ifs, no second-guessing, no late-night urges to scroll through old pictures or reread texts I never deleted. I went full ghost. I updated my number. Switched apartments. Cut off mutual contacts. I stopped checking mail unless it was from the bank or the court. Nothing with a handwritten return address made it past my shredder. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't just trying to get distance. I had it. And in that silence, I started to rebuild. I leaned into work. Landed a promotion. Got closer with people I actually chose to have in my life, not just the ones fate assigned me by blood. I started seeing someone. Casual at first. No baggage. She didn't know my backstory, didn't need to. We met at a friend's game night, made each other laugh, and things just worked. For once, no drama. No triangles. Just a person who met me where I was. Then, 6 months into that piece, it happened again. I was out walking my dog, yeah, I got a dog, rescued him from a shelter, and I saw her. My sister. Across the street. Pushing a stroller. She looked hollow. That's the only way I can describe it. Hair pulled back in some messy, careless bun. Eyes sunken. That anxious shuffle of someone who's exhausted in their bones. The baby was fussing, and she didn't even flinch. Just kept moving forward like she was running on fumes. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did and chose not to. Doesn't matter. I didn't say a word. Just kept walking. But something shifted in me that day. Not empathy. Not guilt. But a realization, she'd finally started paying the price. Not just for what she did to me, but for how she's lived her entire life. All take, no give. All impulse, no consequence. And now, she was alone. I heard through Nate, he still talks to people back home, that our parents had stopped helping her financially. My dad was retired and burned out. My mom had supposedly tried to raise the baby with her for a while but got tired of the emotional strain. Translation, she thought the child would be her second chance at controlling someone's life, and when it didn't work, she bailed. The kid, her daughter, is a toddler now. Doesn't know anything about what happened before her. Just another innocent person born into the fallout of other people's bad choices. And I know what some people are thinking. But what about the child? She's innocent. Doesn't she deserve a chance? Sure. She does. But that's not my responsibility. I didn't bring her into this world. I didn't wreck 2 relationships and then expect the person I hurt to come back and fix it. You don't get to torch someone's life, then hand them the hose and ask for help putting it out. I've wrestled with whether I should feel bad about that. But here's what it comes down to. I've given enough. Time. Energy. Forgiveness I didn't owe. Money that was offered to manipulate me. Emotional labor that no one ever returned. I gave everything they asked for. And then some. And now I'm done. The last message I ever got from my mom was a forwarded email from my sister. It had a photo attached. The little girl, my niece, technically, wearing a Halloween costume. She looked like a miniature astronaut, all bundled up and smiling. I didn't open the message. Just saw the preview and hit delete. Because that's how they operate. Little emotional landmines. Tiny attempts to chip away at the wall I built. But the wall's staying up. I'm not saying this for applause. I'm not looking for people to validate me. I know some people won't understand. That's fine. They didn't live it. They didn't sit in my silence. They didn't get the front row seat to the moment when family stopped being family and turned into strangers with leverage. I did. And I made my choice. They can live in the world they created. I'm staying in the one I built for myself. It's been over 3 years now since everything imploded. 3 years since I walked out of the apartment I shared with someone I thought I was going to marry. 3 years since I found out my own sister had been sleeping with her behind my back. 3 years since my parents tried to spin the fallout into some sick morality tale about forgiveness and the bigger picture. And you know what? Not once have I regretted cutting them off. I used to think that kind of break, clean, permanent, was impossible. That there'd always be some tether. Some invisible string pulling you back toward your blood, even if it was soaked in betrayal. But the truth is, that string only stays intact if you keep pretending it's there. Once you stop playing their game, once you stop replying, stop justifying, stop hoping for apologies that will never come, it snaps. And nothing snaps quite like a family that's only functional when you play the role they wrote for you. When I stopped playing that role, the whole damn play fell apart. I moved again, this time across the country. Different coast, different climate, different rhythm. I took a new job, started fresh. Got rid of the last physical things that tied me to the past, a few photos, an old set of keys, a storage box full of wedding plans that never happened. Gone. Burned. Buried. Forgotten. My life now. It's quiet. Not perfect, I don't even believe in that word anymore. But it's mine. I wake up in the morning and I don't carry anyone's weight but my own. I don't wonder what disaster is waiting in my inbox. I don't dread birthdays or holidays. I don't brace myself for phone calls I didn't ask for. There's peace in that. And the irony? I'm not angry anymore. That was the biggest surprise. I thought I'd carry that anger forever. That it would be my armor. My motivation. My way of staying sharp. But once the noise faded and I gave myself permission to move forward without their narrative attached to me, the rage started to dissolve. Not because I forgave them. Because I outgrew them. They've reached out, of course. Quiet attempts. Emails from burner accounts. Voicemails from unlisted numbers. My sister wrote a post on Facebook that a friend screenshotted for me once, talking about how people change and how she's trying to make amends and hopes one day certain people can find it in their heart to forgive. That was the closest thing to an apology I ever got. She never used my name. Never admitted what she did. Just vague sentiment dressed up as growth. And it's not enough. Not for me. Because I know who I am now. I know what I've lived through. And more importantly, I know that I don't owe anyone access to my peace just because they happen to share my last name. That little girl, my supposed niece, is probably talking now. Forming memories. She'll grow up surrounded by people who pretend like they didn't shatter the foundation beneath her before she could even walk. Maybe they'll tell her about me. Maybe they won't. Maybe I'll just be a blank space in the family tree, a name she hears in hushed tones when someone slips up during Thanksgiving. And if one day she comes looking for me, If she knocks on my door when she's older and wants to know the truth, I'll tell her. I'll tell her the whole story. Not out of spite. Not to punish. Just so she understands that silence doesn't always mean bitterness. Sometimes it's just the sound of someone finally choosing themselves. And if she's anything like me, she'll understand. That's it. That's the story. My dad tried to buy my forgiveness. My sister tried to rewrite history. My ex vanished after breaking the foundation of my life. And through it all, I learned the hardest, clearest truth I've ever had to accept. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is walk away from people who never expected you to stand up for yourself.